Ethan Ward never thought saving someone would happen so suddenly. He never planned it, never imagined it, and certainly never expected that the person he would save would be an alien princess. He worked on the joint human-Varan research station as an engineer. His days were always full of numbers, quiet repairs, and checking wires that nobody else wanted to touch. Nothing dramatic ever happened in his life. But on this day, everything changed. The station corridors always had a soft blue glow, bright enough to walk but dim enough to feel calm. Ethan liked that light. It made him forget that he was in deep space, far from Earth, surrounded by beings who looked half like humans and half like something from an old fantasy story. The Varan people had slender bodies, pale crystal-like eyes, and hair that glimmered faintly under the lights. They were peaceful, proud, and very serious about honor. Ethan admired them, even if he sometimes felt like an awkward guest in their world. He walked down the corridor with his toolkit, humming a tune he barely remembered. He had been assigned to check energy fluctuations on Deck 3 after a report came that a capacitor was behaving strangely. Usually it was nothing special, just wires overheating, sensors misreading, or some Varan assistant spilling glowing liquid on a machine and pretending it wasn't their fault. Ethan expected something like that. He didn't expect danger. As he reached the intersection leading to the capacitor room, a sharp clicking sound reached his ears. Then a low electronic hum filled the corridor, rising quickly like something charging itself. He frowned, slowing his steps, trying to listen carefully. That sound was wrong. It wasn't a usual capacitor buzz. It was deeper, more uneven, and rising too fast. He placed his toolkit on the floor and hurried forward. When he turned the corner, his entire body froze. The main capacitor on the wall was glowing bright white, brighter than it should ever be. White meant overload. White meant danger. White meant an explosion was seconds away. He felt his heart slam into his chest. His eyes darted across the hallway to find the shutoff panel, but before he could reach it, he heard footsteps behind him. He whipped around. Princess Lysera walked gracefully toward him, unaware of the danger. She wore her usual silver-blue robes that shimmered like cold water. 2 guards were a short distance behind her, but she had stepped ahead of them, speaking softly into a holo device, reading something important. Ethan's eyes widened in shock. She was heading straight into a blast zone. Ethan tried to call out, but his voice cracked. He felt fear jump into his throat. "Stop! Don't come this way!" She looked up, confused, slowing down just slightly. Her crystal blue eyes met Ethan's, puzzled. The capacitor made a harsh, crackling sound. Ethan didn't think. He didn't plan. His mind didn't form a single clear idea. His body simply moved. He sprinted forward, crossing the corridor in a heartbeat. The princess barely had time to gasp before he grabbed her arms, turned his back to the capacitor, and pushed her down to the floor. She remained frozen in shock as Ethan wrapped himself around her, using his body as a shield. He tried to hold her as gently as possible, but he also knew he had to cover her completely. The world behind him flashed white. The explosion came like a roaring storm. Heat hit Ethan's back. A fierce shockwave slammed into him like a giant's fist. His ears rang instantly. Dust, sparks, and bright fragments flew everywhere. He felt the floor vibrate violently under him. He tightened his arms around Lysera, his body absorbing the impact. Pain shot through his spine and shoulders, but he didn't let go. As the blast wave passed, Ethan felt his strength slipping away. His head swam. The princess was speaking. He could see her lips moving, but he couldn't hear her. His hearing was just ringing. Her guards rushed in, shouting something, pointing weapons, their faces filled with shock and fear. The lights flickered above them. Ethan felt dizzy. He blinked slowly. His last clear thought was simple. At least she's safe. Then, darkness wrapped around him like a heavy blanket. When he opened his eyes again, he wasn't lying on the cold metal floor anymore. Instead, he lay on something soft, something floating. A bed? He breathed in deeply. The air smelled different. It carried the faint scent of some kind of calming herbs, used by the Varen. Ethan blinked again, confused. Shapes moved around him. Tall figures wearing elegant ceremonial armor stood in a circle. Their armor shined under golden pillars of light rising from the floor. Their long robes flowed behind them like soft waves. Their crystal blue eyes were all focused on him, suspicious, curious, even slightly offended. Ethan felt his heart jump. He had never been surrounded by so many high-ranking Varen before. He tried to sit up, but a gentle force pushed him back. It wasn't rough, just firm enough to warn him. A guard stood nearby with one hand raised, a faint blue glow around their palm. Ethan swallowed hard. It was a telekinetic control gesture, something only trained Varen could use. He looked around again, this time more carefully. The room was enormous, shaped almost like a floating dome. Banners hovered in the air, embroidered with glowing symbols. Platforms floated slowly in circles above and around them. Ethan realized at once where he was, the royal court chamber. He panicked a little inside. Why was he here? Why would someone like him, a low-level human engineer, be placed in the royal court, surrounded by elite guards and council members? Surely they had more important things to deal with. Maybe they wanted to question him? Maybe they thought he caused the explosion? Before he could think further, someone stepped forward. Princess Lysera. She wore a different robe now, more formal than before. It had soft waves of blue and silver drifting across the fabric. A faint glow surrounded her, showing she still wore a protective energy band from the medical wing. She looked calm, but her eyes held worry and something else Ethan couldn't define. She moved closer, ignoring the guard's caution. She knelt beside the floating bed and looked at him with gentle eyes. "Do you feel pain?" she asked. Ethan tried to answer, but his throat felt dry. "A little," he whispered. "But I'm fine. Are you okay?" She blinked, surprised at the question. "You shielded me from a violent blast," she said softly. "You should not worry about me." The council members murmured around them, discussing quietly. Ethan could tell they weren't only curious, they were suspicious. The Varen were polite, but he could see in their faces that they struggled to understand why a human would throw himself in front of an explosion. Their culture valued self-protection, unless duty demanded otherwise. Ethan's act broke their logic. A tall counselor stepped forward. His voice was deep and smooth. "Human Ethan Ward," he said. "Your actions are unusual. Brave, perhaps, but unusual." Ethan tried to push himself up again, confused. "I wasn't thinking," he said honestly. She was in danger. Anyone would have done the same. A few council members exchanged doubtful looks. Lysera frowned slightly at them. Another counselor crossed her arms. "We do not believe it is normal for a human engineer to leap into a blast for a member of the royal bloodline. There are rules. There are protocols. And there are motives." Ethan stared at her. "Motives? What motives?" Lysera stood immediately. "He saved my life," she said firmly. "He did not harm me. He should not be accused." But the counselor continued coldly. "The explosion might have been sabotage, and we cannot ignore that you were the closest human to the scene." Ethan's stomach dropped. Sabotage? He had only seen a capacitor that overloaded. Or had he? The buzzing sound. The way it glowed. He suddenly felt unsure. Lysera stepped closer to him, placing herself subtly between Ethan and the council. I saw him react with instinct. There was no plan. No deception. He acted before thinking. His injuries proved that. The room grew silent for a moment. Ethan felt grateful, but also nervous. Being defended by a princess wasn't something he ever expected. He wanted to speak, but before he could, another guard bowed quickly and spoke to the council. "Princess Lysera is correct. Medical scans confirm the blast was far stronger than a normal capacitor fault. Something was tampered with." A ripple of tension moved through the court. A counselor turned to Ethan. "Until we understand what happened, you are placed under royal protective observation." Ethan blinked. That sounded very formal. Lysera looked directly at him. "Do not worry," she said softly. "You are safe here." But Ethan wasn't sure. Safe was the word he would use. He felt like the entire room was trying to read his mind. Every eye was watching him, judging him, questioning him. He was just a normal engineer, yet he had been pulled into something bigger than anything he ever imagined. As the discussion continued among the council, Ethan lay there listening, trying to stay calm. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know why the explosion happened. He didn't know what the court truly thought of him. But one thing he knew for sure. Saving the princess had changed everything, and it was only the beginning. Ethan spent the first hours in the royal chamber trying to understand what had happened. He kept lying on the floating bed, watching as the Varen court moved around him like a strange dream he could not wake from. Every time he tried to sit up, a guard or medical aide gently pushed him back with soft blue energy, insisting he rest. Their politeness made him even more nervous. It felt like everyone saw him as something fragile, or dangerous, or both at the same time. Even the room felt unreal. The ceiling glowed with shifting colors, forming soft patterns like liquid light. The walls curved smoothly, covered with symbols that looked carved and glowing at once. The air itself hummed faintly, as if full of energy that ordinary humans could not understand. Ethan was an engineer, but even he had no idea how Varen technology worked. They didn't build machines, they grew them, shaped them, sang them into existence through energy manipulation. Every piece of their world felt alive. Princess Lysera stayed near him more than he expected. She moved between council members and the floating bed with calm steps, answering questions, defending him when necessary, watching him carefully to make sure he was not in pain. Ethan felt awkward every time their eyes met. She was royalty, and he was a guy who fixed wires and sometimes dropped tools on his own foot. After several discussions, the council stepped aside to talk privately. Lysera returned to him with a soft smile. "How do you feel now?" she asked gently. Ethan forced a small smile back. "Like I've been hit by a shuttle," he said. "But I'll survive." She tilted her head, confused. "Is that supposed to be humorous?" "Well, yes." She blinked twice. "Humans are very strange." Ethan could not help laughing, even though his ribs hurt. Her expression softened, showing a little amusement he hadn't seen before. But the peaceful moment didn't last long. The council returned, forming a half-circle around Ethan. Their eyes were serious, controlled, and full of expectation. One of the older counselors, with silver lines glowing across his forehead, spoke with authority. "Human Ethan Ward," he began. "The explosion has been confirmed as sabotage. Someone placed a hidden disruptor inside the capacitor. The device released unstable energy, creating the blast which nearly killed our princess." Ethan's chest tightened. "Someone tried to assassinate her?" "That is one possibility," the counselor said. "Another is that the saboteur wishes to disrupt the alliance between our people and yours." Another counselor stepped forward. He had a sharp face and piercing eyes. "And you were the closest human to the scene. We must consider all possibilities." Ethan felt anger rise in him. "You can't think I did it. I almost got myself blown up too." Lysera stepped forward before the council could speak. "He saved me," she said firmly. "If he wanted harm, he would not have shielded me." Several counselors lowered their eyes respectfully, but the sharp-faced one remained unconvinced. "Even so, he may know more than he says." "He knows nothing," Lysera snapped. It was the first time Ethan had heard her raise her voice. Even the guards shifted, surprised. "He is a guest on our station, and an engineer with no connection to politics. He acts with sincerity." The sharp-faced counselor fell silent, but not defeated. The oldest counselor raised a hand, calming the room. "We will not treat him as a prisoner. But until the situation is clearer, he will be placed under royal protective observation. He may not leave our supervision." "Meaning, I can't go back to my quarters?" Ethan asked. "Not for now," the old counselor replied gently. Your safety and ours must be preserved. If the saboteur sees you as a threat to their plan, you may also be targeted. Ethan blinked. That had not occurred to him. Someone might want to kill me too? The counselor nodded. Possibly. Ethan sank into the floating bed, overwhelmed. He had only intended to check on a malfunctioning capacitor. Now he was trapped in a royal court, suspected by some, protected by others, and targeted by an unknown enemy. It was almost too much. Lysra noticed his fear and moved a little closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. Do not let their words frighten you, she whispered. You are safe while you are near me. Ethan looked at her, surprised again by her confidence. Why are you being so kind to me? She blinked slowly. Because you protected me. And because your actions show that your heart is clean. Her words warmed him more than he expected. Then, with the council's decision made, Ethan was escorted, not dragged, not guarded harshly, just escorted to a special chamber near the royal wing. It was far bigger and more luxurious than his small human quarters. Soft, floating lights moved across the room. A balcony overlooked a transparent dome with glowing stars beyond it. The bed was made of some soft energy fabric that shaped itself around him perfectly. If he were not so stressed, he might have enjoyed it. A guard stood at the door, silent but respectful. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, trying to calm his thoughts. Before he could gather himself, Lysra entered the room. You should rest, she said softly. Ethan shook his head. I can't rest. I'm being blamed for something I didn't do. And I don't understand why someone would attack the station. Lysra moved to stand beside him. I have been thinking about that, she said quietly. The timing, the method, none of it fits our usual enemies. And it does not match human technology either. So someone else is behind this, Ethan said. Someone we don't know. Someone who wants fear, she agreed. Someone who wants distrust. Ethan rubbed his forehead. If that's true, then we're already playing into their hands. The council suspects me. Humans will hear about this too. It could tear everything apart. Lysra looked at him with calm eyes. Then we must find the truth. We? Ethan repeated. You want my help? You were there when it happened, she said simply. And you are an engineer. You understand energy patterns better than most Varen guards. You notice details that our kind often ignore. Your perspective is useful. Go over that. Ethan felt a strange mix of pride and fear. He had never expected a princess to value his skills like this. I'll help, he said quietly. If it means clearing my name and stopping whoever did this, I'll do anything. Lysra smiled. Small but genuine. Good. Then tomorrow, we begin investigating together. Before Ethan could ask more questions, she turned and walked toward the door, her robes moving softly behind her. For a moment, Ethan forgot how exhausted he was. He watched her until the door closed. The night cycle on the station passed slowly. Ethan lay awake, replaying the explosion in his mind. The clicking sound. The glow. The strange hum. He tried to recall every detail. He had survived the blast, but the memory was blurred by panic and heat. He turned onto his side. The floating bed shifted gently to support him. He closed his eyes. When morning came, or what counted as morning on a space station, the guard tapped the door with a soft metal sound. Princess Lysra requests your presence, he said politely. Ethan stood, stretched carefully, and followed the guard through the royal hallways. The corridors here were more decorated than the ones he usually repaired. Crystal shapes floated in patterns, forming symbols of Varen history. Smooth platforms drifted across open spaces like moving walkways. Everything was bright, elegant, and full of calm power. Lysra waited in a research room filled with glowing displays. She wore a more practical outfit today, a fitted robe with light armor over it, showing she was prepared for serious work. A group of engineers bowed when they saw her, then looked curiously at Ethan. She gave him a warm look. Are you ready? As ready as I'll ever be, Ethan replied. The investigation began with a study of the damaged capacitor. The remains had been brought into the room, sealed inside a transparent energy cube. Parts were melted, twisted, and fused together from the blast. Ethan walked around the cube, studying every detail carefully. "Do you notice anything?" Lysera asked. Ethan leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. "Yes. This isn't natural damage. Look at these marks. Something was attached here. Something small." A Varan engineer stepped forward. "We also detected foreign residue," Ethan nodded. "A disruptor device. Small, compact, hidden inside. Someone placed it there on purpose." Lyrisa exchanged a serious look with her engineers. "Then we must find who had access to this area." As they talked, Ethan began to feel more confident. His mind focused on the technical details, giving him something clear to chase. He forgot the fear, forgot the suspicion, even forgot that he was surrounded by royal guards. He became the engineer he was trained to be, but as they worked, something else happened, something he did not expect. Lyrisa stood close to him, asked him questions, listened carefully to his explanations, and even smiled when he made simple human jokes. She seemed more relaxed around him, more trusting, and Ethan felt something shift inside him too. He wasn't just helping to solve a mystery, he was becoming part of something bigger, something he didn't yet understand, something that would lead him deeper into danger, and deeper into the Varan world. He just didn't know it yet. The next day on the station felt different. Even the air seemed heavier, filled with whispers and nerves. Rumors spread quickly among the Varan. Someone had tried to kill the princess. A human had been involved. And the royal court was now guarding a foreign engineer inside the palace wing. Ethan could feel the tension everywhere he walked. Every Varan he passed stared at him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Some whispered, some bowed slightly, some looked away. He realized that saving Lysera had accidentally made him famous, but fame did not make him feel safe. Lysera walked beside him as they moved through the halls toward the engineering division. Ethan noticed she stayed close. Not out of fear, but out of purpose. She was determined to find answers. Her calm presence kept him from falling into panic. Inside the research chamber, the investigators had gathered data from the damaged capacitor. They displayed glowing diagrams in the air graphs, energy waves, structural patterns. Ethan stepped closer, studying them carefully. One engineer bowed to Lysera and explained, "We found a foreign energy signature inside the core. It does not match Varan or human technology." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Not human, not Varan. Then who?" Lysera looked thoughtful. "There are several smaller factions around our space borders. Some are peaceful. Some are unpredictable. But none have entered our territory without permission." Ethan rubbed his chin. "So either someone sneaked on board, or someone on board is working for them." A quiet heaviness filled the room at those words. Lysera's voice lowered. "If that is true, then the traitor is still here." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. It made sense, but it was terrifying. The person who planted the disruptor might be watching them at that very moment. He stepped closer to the diagram. "Show me the energy readings minutes before the explosion." The engineers adjusted the display. Waves appeared soft blue, then rising sharply into white. But in the corner of the graph, Ethan saw something odd. A tiny spike that did not belong. "Stop," Ethan said quickly. "Zoom there." A section of the graph expanded. A thin black ripple crossed the energy line. Ethan's eyes widened. "This ripple. I've seen this before." He thought back to an old human report about illegal energy devices used by smugglers. "This is a cloaking signature." "Oni," Lysera leaned in. "Meaning someone used a cloaking field to hide the device?" "Yes," Ethan said. "A normal scanner wouldn't see it. Only a tiny energy flicker gives it away." The room filled with murmurs. The engineers were impressed. Lysera looked proud, as if Ethan had just solved half the puzzle. But he felt more nervous than proud. If someone was using cloaking technology inside the station, it meant they were skilled, careful, and dangerous. Lucera rested one hand lightly on the table. We must find where the saboteur went after placing the device. Can you trace the energy residue? Ethan nodded. I can try. The next hours passed in intense work. Ethan and the Varen engineers scanned the halls, checked the station logs, and used advanced sensors to track the faint cloaking signature. It was difficult, like chasing a shadow in a storm, because the energy faded fast. But Ethan had a sharp eye for patterns. His mind worked like a puzzle solver. The more complicated the design, the faster he found connections. Lucera stayed with him the entire time. Sometimes she asked questions. Sometimes she translated Varen data for him. And sometimes she simply watched him work with an expression that Ethan struggled to interpret. Admiration? Trust? Curiosity? All three, perhaps. By the 6th hour, Ethan spotted something. There, he said, pointing at a glowing map. The cloaking signature passed through the maintenance tunnels. Lucera frowned. Those tunnels are restricted. Only engineers and guards have access. Ethan's stomach tightened, meaning it could be someone in maintenance, or someone disguised as one. Lucera nodded slowly. Let us investigate. They entered the maintenance tunnels, accompanied by 2 guards. The tunnels were darker and narrower than the main halls, filled with cables, pipes, and humming machinery. Ethan felt more at home there than in the grand palace rooms, but he also felt uneasy. The saboteur had walked the same path. Lucera walked behind him, her soft steps echoing lightly. Is it safe? She asked. Ethan nodded. Yes. These tunnels are stable. Just don't touch anything glowing red or hissing. She smiled a little at that. I will avoid anything that hisses. They found a junction where several paths met. Ethan scanned the floor with a handheld device. Faint traces of cloaking energy glowed in the air. He stood here, Ethan said quietly, for at least a minute, maybe watching for guards. Lucera stepped closer. What is this? She asked, pointing at a small metallic piece on the ground. Ethan crouched and picked it up. It was a shard of dark metal, sharp at one end. This is not from the station. This is part of the disruptor device. Lucera's eyes narrowed. He dropped it. Or, Ethan said softly. Someone interrupted him. A shadow passed across Lucera's face. If he was interrupted, then he may have rushed. And if he rushed, he may make mistakes. That helps us, Ethan said. If he rushed, the energy trail will be stronger. End quote. He followed the trail deeper into the tunnels. It led them toward an unused storage room. A guard opened the door. But the room was empty at first glance. Ethan's eyes scanned the walls. Then he saw it. A small circular burn mark near the ceiling. He climbed, Ethan said. He used the ventilation shafts. Lucera sighed. Ventilation pathways are impossible to track. Ethan shook his head. Maybe not completely. He used his scanner again. The air inside the vent shimmered strangely. He left some residue on his clothing. A rare mineral. My scanner can pick it up. Lucera looked impressed. Human devices are more clever than I thought. Ethan smiled shyly. Sometimes. They followed the mineral trail through several decks. It led through sleeping quarters, past storage areas, and into an area Ethan recognized. The docking section. Lucera's eyes hardened. If he escaped in a shuttle. He didn't, Ethan said quickly. The trail doesn't go to the exit. It stops there. He pointed to a small service hatch near the wall. Lucera walked closer. What is inside this? A maintenance crawl space, Ethan said. It leads to the power core levels. Lucera froze for a moment. The power core? Ethan felt the same cold fear she did. If he's trying to sabotage the power core, the explosion would be far worse. Lucera turned to her guards. Send a warning to the Royal Council. Increase security on all high-energy chambers. The guards bowed and ran. Ethan opened the hatch. The crawl space was dim and narrow, barely wide enough for a human to move through. The mineral trail was much stronger inside. He went this way, Ethan said. Recently. Lucera placed a hand on his shoulder. If you enter, You must be careful. The saboteur might still be ahead. He nodded. If he tries something else, we need to stop him. Lysera met his gaze. I will go with you. Ethan shook his head. It's too dangerous. I know what I am, she said quietly. But I will not leave you to face danger alone. Her voice was firm. Ethan realized she was not a fragile princess. She was intelligent, brave, and unafraid to take risks when necessary. He respected her deeply in that moment. Together, they crawled through the narrow space. After several turns, they reached a small chamber filled with machines. Ethan paused, listening. A faint vibration like footsteps echoed through the metal. He's close, Ethan whispered. Lysera nodded silently. They entered the chamber, but it was empty. Ethan scanned the room. The mineral trail ended in front of a panel on the wall. He touched the panel and it slid open. Behind it, a hidden space revealed more evidence. Tools, cloaking residue, and a strange device half-built. Lysera inhaled sharply. He is planning a second attack. Ethan studied the device. A bigger one. This could overload half the station if completed. Lysera stepped closer. We must report this at once. Ethan nodded. But something felt wrong. Too easy. Too convenient. And then he realized, this wasn't his hiding place, Ethan said slowly. This was his distraction. Lysera's eyes widened. He wanted us to find this. He's hiding something bigger, Ethan said. And we're running out of time. A deep alarm suddenly echoed through the chamber. Lysera stiffened. That alarm is from the power core level. Lysera. Ethan swallowed hard. Then he's already there. Lysera turned sharply. We must reach it now. They ran through the tunnels, following the echoes of the alarm. Ethan's heart pounded. The saboteur was steps ahead of them. And whatever he planned next could destroy everything. The danger was no longer a mystery. It was right in front of them, and they had to face it together. The palace felt strangely quiet the next morning. Adam woke early. Long before the twin suns rose above the crystal towers, he sat at the edge of the soft, glowing bed and rubbed his eyes. For a moment, he listened carefully, expecting the usual noise from the hallways, the guards marching, the workers cleaning, the soft hum of energy lines that ran through the whole palace. But everything sounded calm, almost too calm. He stood up and walked to the balcony. The view was stunning as always. Shining white bridges, gardens filled with blue leaves, the gentle river of light that flowed across the city. But he sensed something different in the air. The wind felt heavier, almost worried. Even the birds, small floating creatures that drifted like balloons, were silent. Adam took a deep breath. Today was the final day of the trial. The council would make a decision that would decide not only his fate, but also the future of the entire kingdom. He knew many on the council didn't trust him. Some didn't trust any human, and a few still believed he was somehow responsible for the attack in the throne room, even though the truth had already been proven. He turned as the door opened. Lyrana stepped into the room, wearing a soft blue robe. Her eyes looked tired, as if she hadn't slept either. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. You're awake early, she said quietly. I couldn't sleep much, Adam admitted. Too much on my mind. She moved closer, her expression soft. Adam, no matter what the council decides today, I want you to know something. She paused, searching for the right words. You changed my life. You changed the way my people see humans. Even if the council refuses everything, you should know this truth. Adam looked at her, feeling a strange mix of warmth and worry. And what is that? That you saved me not only from a blast, she said, her voice almost a whisper, but from a life where I never questioned my own world. You made me see things I never saw before. Adam felt his chest tighten. He had grown closer to her than he ever expected. But today, everything could fall apart. A soft chime echoed in the room. It was the council's signal. They're ready, Lyrana said. Adam nodded. There was no avoiding it now. They walked together through the long halls. The walls shimmered with patterns that shifted as they passed, reacting to their emotions. Today, the walls showed pale colors, uncertainty. Guards opened the doors to the grand chamber. The alien court was already gathered. Hundreds of representatives from different regions, different species, and different branches of the royal authority. Their eyes followed Adam the moment he entered. Some looked curious, others cautious. A few, openly cold. At the center of the vast chamber, the High Council sat on a raised platform. Their robes were long and decorated with glowing symbols. Adam could recognize some faces now: Eldran, the elder who always doubted him; Seraphin, who believed humans were dangerous; and Mirael, who had defended him during the earlier sessions. Adam stepped into the center of the circle. The room quieted until no sound remained. Eldran stood up. "We have gathered here for the final judgment regarding Adam, the human who shielded Princess Lyrana from the deadly blast. We have reviewed all evidence, all testimonies, and all recordings." Adam felt his heartbeat speed up. He kept his posture straight. Eldran continued, "The council will now state its conclusions." Lyrana took a step forward, but another council member shook their head slightly, telling her to stay silent until the vote ended. Mirael rose next. "It is clear that Adam acted with bravery. He protected the princess without hesitation. Everything proves he risked his own life for her, expecting nothing in return." A murmur ran through the court. Seraphin rose after her, his voice sharp. "But we must not forget that because Adam was present, the attacker used the opportunity to strike. Humans bring chaos. Humans bring unpredictability. He may not be guilty of the attack, but his presence invites danger." Lorana's eyes burned with anger, but she stayed silent. Then the High Chancellor, the oldest of all, stood up. His voice was steady, slow, and heavy with authority. "We have seen courage," he said, "but we have also seen fear. We have seen loyalty, but also the unknown. Adam is unique, a human who saved our princess. But our history with humans is not without conflict." Adam didn't look away. He held the Chancellor's gaze. "Therefore," the Chancellor continued, "the Council will vote. The choices are simple. Allow Adam to stay among us, and offer him an honorary position, or send him back to his world, and ban human contact for the next century." Lyrana inhaled sharply. Adam felt his stomach drop. The chamber filled with soft whispers as the council members prepared to cast their vote. Small floating crystals rose from the sides of the room. Each council member placed a hand over one. Blue light meant acceptance. Red meant rejection. Adam watched as hands lifted. The first crystal glowed blue, the second red, the third blue. More and more lights appeared, mixing in the air like fireflies. Adam couldn't count fast enough, but he could sense the tension. Lyrana watched with her fists tightly clenched. Finally, the crystals returned to the ground. The Chancellor raised his hand. "The results are final." Adam held his breath. "The Council has decided. By a narrow margin," the Chancellor said slowly, "to accept Adam among us." A rush of relief swept over him so strongly he had to close his eyes for a moment. Lyrana let out a breath she had been holding and finally allowed herself a real smile. But the Chancellor wasn't done. "With conditions," he added. Adam opened his eyes again. "You will be assigned a role in the Royal Guard. You will learn our ways, our rules, our history, and our responsibilities. Your actions will represent us, and you will protect the princess not by accident, but by duty." Adam nodded. "I accept." Lyrana stepped forward now, unable to stay still. "He has already proven his loyalty," she said. "He deserves this chance." Eldran frowned but didn't speak. The Chancellor continued, "There is one more matter. The attacker who targeted the princess has been discovered." A hologram flickered to life in the center of the chamber. The attacker's face appeared someone Adam recognized from the day of the explosion, a member of a rival faction who believed the princess supported peace too strongly. "He has escaped," the Chancellor said. "He plans more attacks." Lyrana's face hardened. We cannot allow him to harm anyone else. Adam straightened. Tell me what to do. The Chancellor looked at him carefully. You will join our best teams. Track him. Stop him. Not for the Council, but for the people you protected. Adam nodded again. I won't fail. Later that night, Adam sat with Lirana in the quiet palace garden. Glowing flowers lit the path as they walked slowly through the soft blue light. I was scared today, Lirana admitted. Scared that they would take you away. Adam looked at her, his voice gentle. I was scared too, but I knew one thing. What? That I wasn't leaving without a fight. Lirana smiled softly. You really changed everything. Adam shrugged lightly. You changed me too. They stopped near the edge of the garden, where the city lights shimmered like stars beneath them. Tomorrow, Lirana said, you begin your training. A new life. And after training? Adam asked. She met his eyes. After training, we face whatever comes. Together. Adam felt something warm settle inside him, a sense of purpose he had never felt before. Not forced, not demanded, chosen. As the twin moons rose above the city, Adam looked at the alien world that had once terrified him. Now, it felt like home. He didn't know what dangers awaited. He didn't know how difficult the mission would be. But he knew one thing with certainty. He would protect this world. He would protect the princess. And he would not step back from any challenge. Because this was more than fate. This was the beginning of the story he chose to live. And he was ready for it.